Hi, I'm Katherine. I'm a designer here at Yarnspirations in Toronto. Like so many of you are, I'm currently self-isolating, so that seems like a perfect time to start a stitch along. So welcome to the Yarnspirations Let's Stitch Together Knit Along. Today we are starting the Red Heart Mitered Knit Blanket. This blanket is made of a total of 49 knit motifs, which we will sew together. It'll be worked in 7 different color combinations that will be announced over the course of the next 2.5 weeks. Today's combination, we're starting with real teal as color 1 and light raspberry as color 2. We also have 5 other shades that we'll be using, all in Red Heart Super Saver. So Perfect Pink, Pool, Minty, Shocking Pink, and Claret. This is the palette I've put together from my own stash, but you're obviously free to improvise with whatever you might have in your stash at home. You can use any number 4 worsted weight yarn. Gauge isn't super critical, but you want to make sure you're within the same neighborhood as this gauge of 16 stitches and 30 rows in garter stitch. In order to complete this project, you will also need, obviously, knitting needles. We're using US 8 or 5mm knitting needles. You can use straight needles or circulars. I prefer circulars, so that's what I've cast on with already. You will also need a stitch marker and a tapestry needle. So I've gotten a little bit of a head start. I've already cast on and I've actually knit my first row, which was a wrong side row, and it was all knit stitches. So now I'm actually joining my second shade, which is the light raspberry. And so to keep a neat edge as you move on up, you will want to make sure that your color that you're not using is held behind at the beginning of the row, and that'll create a neater edge as you work along. So here I do 23 knit stitches. And note too, when you're changing colors, sometimes those first stitches can loosen up a little bit, so you can just tighten those by pulling on the tails. So I'm knitting 23 here. And this blanket is worked entirely in garter stitch. And the interest comes from, there's a 4-row stripe repeat, and you're doing a decrease every other row, which is what creates this miter. And the decrease you're working is a double decrease. So this is a very intuitive knit, and this first row is the only row that you're gonna have to do any counting on. Which is great, because I've already lost count. So let's see where we're at. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 22, 23. All right, here we are. So we're now gonna do our centered, or our double decrease, which is a slip 1. I'll just show you that again. Slip 1 stitch knitwise. Knit your next 2 stitches together. And then pass that slip stitch over. And so you've now decreased 2 stitches. And you'll place a marker on that stitch that you've just worked. And so in subsequent rows, you'll see that the instructions indicate to knit to 1 stitch before marked stitch. So every right side row, you do a decrease, and you know that that starts right before your marked stitch. And what I love about mitered squares is they work up more quickly as you go along because you're working with fewer stitches. So it's really fun to see these come to fruition. And there's still a fairly mindless knit that you can do while listening to a podcast or watching Netflix or, heaven forbid, being social with your family. So there you go. Please make sure you share images of what you're knitting on social. Please use the hashtag Let's Stitch Together. I can't wait to see all the color combinations and blankets that you work up. Thank you so much for joining me today. Bye.